In 2015, researchers at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago published a study in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia. They had followed 923 older adults, tracking what they ate, how they lived, and how their cognitive function changed over 4.5 years. At the end of the study, they found something that every person over 60 needs to hear. The people who most closely followed a specific eating pattern, one designed deliberately for brain protection, had cognitive performance equivalent to brains that were 7.5 years younger than their actual age. 7.5 years, not from a medication, not from a procedure, not from a supplement purchased online, from food. Specifically, from a documented, studied pattern of eating that used ingredients available at any grocery store. That eating pattern is called the MINDdiet, and today I am going to walk you through every component of it, what it includes, what it limits, the specific mechanism behind each food, and exactly what a week of eating for your brain actually looks like. Before we go into the foods themselves, let me give you the 3 numbers that frame why this video matters. First number, 53. Adults who most closely followed the MINDdiet had a 53% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease compared to those who did not follow it closely. That is from the same 2015 Rush University study. Second number, 35. Even people who followed the diet only moderately, not perfectly, not rigorously, but reasonably, had a 35% lower risk. The MINDdiet does not require perfection to produce a meaningful result. Third number, 7.5. The brain age difference. When researchers compared cognitive performance, memory, attention, language, processing speed, the people who ate this way were functioning like people nearly 8 years younger than themselves. These are not marketing numbers. They are from a peer-reviewed paper in the Alzheimer's Association's own journal, now cited by hundreds of subsequent research papers. Subscribe now and help Dr. Mannu Jones reach the people who need this information most. Before the foods, one belief I need to address directly. Most people over 60 assume that by the time they are at this stage of life, dietary changes cannot meaningfully affect brain health. The damage is done. The trajectory is set. Eating differently now is closing the stable door after the horse is bolted. The MINDdiet research says something different. The Morris study included participants aged 58 to 98. The dietary pattern showed benefits across the age range, not just in people who started early. And in 2023, a randomized controlled trial published in the New England Journal of Medicine followed 604 older adults for 3 years, specifically assigning half of them to MINDdiet coaching and the other half to a general healthy diet. The MINDdiet group maintained cognitive function better than the control group over the study period, a randomized controlled trial, the highest level of evidence in medical research, published in one of the most prestigious journals in the world. In 2023, the conversation about diet and brain health is not closed. The evidence continues to build. The other myth worth clearing up: the MINDdiet is not a fad. It is not a product. Nothing is sold through it. It was developed by a researcher studying the connection between diet and neurodegeneration, drawing from the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, both of which have extensive evidence bases. The result is a dietary pattern specifically calibrated for brain protection. Plain food, simple categories, no special products required. 2 minutes on the mechanism, because understanding why these foods work makes the weekly habits far easier to sustain. Your brain is approximately 60% fat. The quality of the fats you eat directly affects the quality of the membranes of every neuron in your brain. Feed it low-quality fats, saturated fat from processed meat, trans fats from fried food, and the membrane integrity of your neurons degrades. Feed it high-quality fats, omega-3 fatty acids from fish, monounsaturated fat from olive oil, and the structural quality of your brain tissue reflects that. Your brain consumes approximately 20% of your body's total blood flow, despite representing only 2% of body weight. It is the most blood-dependent organ in your body. Every food that damages blood vessel walls, refined sugar, trans fats, excessive saturated fat, reduces the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to brain tissue. Every food that protects blood vessel walls does the opposite. Your brain produces amyloid plaques faster in an inflammatory environment. Foods high in refined carbohydrates, processed ingredients, and inflammatory fats elevate markers of systemic inflammation. That inflammation crosses the blood-brain barrier and accelerates the amyloid accumulation associated with Alzheimer's disease. Foods with high antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties slow that process. 3 mechanisms, one dietary pattern designed to address all 3. The MIND diet has 10 categories of food to eat regularly. I am going through all 10 with the research behind each one. Food 1. Leafy green vegetables. Target: at least 6 servings per week. Ideally 1 to 2 servings every day. Kale, spinach, collard greens, Swiss chard, arugula, romaine lettuce. The cruciferous and dark leafy greens. These are the single highest impact food category in the MIND diet study. The Morris researchers found that adults who ate 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens per day had a rate of cognitive decline equivalent to being 11 years younger than adults who rarely ate them. 11 years, from leafy greens alone, as a single category. The mechanism involves several compounds working simultaneously. Vitamin K, abundant in leafy greens, is associated with memory and cognitive function in ways that are still being studied but appear consistent across populations. Folate reduces homocysteine, an amino acid that, at elevated levels, is directly toxic to neurons. Lutein and beta-carotene, the pigments that give these vegetables their deep green color, are potent antioxidants that reduce oxidative damage to brain cells. Practical note: fresh, frozen, and lightly cooked are all effective. The nutrients survive modest cooking. A daily handful of spinach added to scrambled eggs, a side salad at lunch, or a cup of kale blended into a smoothie counts. 6 servings per week is 1 serving per day with 1 day off. It is achievable. Food 2. Other vegetables. Target: at least 1 additional serving daily beyond leafy greens. Broccoli, carrots, peppers, tomatoes, zucchini, sweet potato, Brussels sprouts. Any vegetable that is not in the leafy green category counts here. The mechanism is primarily anti-inflammatory. The diversity of antioxidants across the vegetable spectrum, different colored vegetables contain different protective compounds, creates a broader defensive profile than any single vegetable can provide. Broccoli contains sulforaphane, which activates the brain's own antioxidant defense systems. Orange and red vegetables are high in carotenoids associated with reduced neurodegeneration. Practical note: variety matters more than quantity here. A different colored vegetable each day is more valuable than the same vegetable every day. Food 3. Berries. Target: at least 2 servings per week. More is better. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. These are the berries with the strongest evidence base, and blueberries specifically have one of the most robust bodies of brain health research of any single food. In 2012, researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital published a study in the Annals of Neurology following 16,000 older women over 2 decades. Those who consumed the highest amounts of blueberries and strawberries had slower rates of cognitive aging, by as much as 2.5 years compared to those who consumed the least. The mechanism involves a class of compounds called anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for the deep blue, red, and purple coloring of berries. These compounds cross the blood-brain barrier directly, something many antioxidants cannot do. Once inside the brain, they reduce neuroinflammation, protect neurons from oxidative damage, and appear to support the signaling between neurons that underlies memory formation. Practical note: fresh and frozen are equally effective. Frozen blueberries year-round are one of the most cost-effective brain health additions available. 2 servings per week is a handful of blueberries with breakfast, twice. Food 4. Nuts. Target: at least 5 servings per week. A serving is about a small handful. Walnuts, almonds, cashews, pecans, hazelnuts, pistachios. The MIND diet does not specify a single type, but walnuts deserve a special mention. Of all nuts, walnuts have the highest concentration of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid that the body partially converts to DHA and EPA, the omega-3 forms found directly in fatty fish. They are also one of the richest plant sources of polyphenols, which reduce oxidative stress in the brain. Multiple studies have associated regular nut consumption with preserved cognitive function across midlife and later life, with a mechanism involving reduced vascular inflammation and improved blood flow to the brain. Practical note: unsalted or lightly salted, raw or dry roasted. Avoid nuts heavily coated in sugar or oil. A serving is roughly 1 ounce, about 20 almonds or 7 to 8 walnut halves. This is a snack, not a meal. Food 5. Olive oil. Target: your primary cooking and dressing oil. Use it daily. This is the most specific guidance in the MIND diet, not just to eat olive oil, but to make it your primary fat. Replacing butter, margarine, and vegetable oils with extra virgin olive oil for cooking, dressing, and sautéing. Extra virgin olive oil contains oleocanthal, a compound with anti-inflammatory properties comparable in mechanism, though not in strength, to ibuprofen. It also contains oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that supports the integrity of brain cell membranes, and a rich array of polyphenols that protect against oxidative damage. The PREDIMED study, a landmark Spanish trial of Mediterranean diet in over 7,400 participants, found that those assigned to Mediterranean diet with extra virgin olive oil had a 30% lower risk of major cardiovascular events, and the cognitive sub-studies confirmed preserved cognitive function relative to the control group. Practical note: extra virgin, not refined. The polyphenols are removed in the refining process. Moderate heat is fine. The smoke point is adequate for everyday cooking. Do not use it for high heat frying. Use it for everything else. Food 6. Whole grains. Target: at least 3 servings daily. Brown rice, oats, whole grain bread, barley, quinoa, whole wheat pasta, farro. The defining feature is the preservation of the bran and germ, the parts of the grain removed in processing. The brain's primary fuel is glucose. What matters for brain health is not just the amount of glucose that reaches the brain, but the consistency of delivery. Whole grains release glucose slowly and steadily, maintaining the stable cognitive fuel supply the brain requires. Refined grains and added sugars deliver glucose in spikes, followed by drops that impair concentration, memory, and mood. Beyond glucose stability, whole grains are rich in B vitamins, particularly B6, B12 in fortified versions, and folate, all of which support healthy homocysteine metabolism and reduce neuroinflammation. The fiber in whole grains also supports the gut microbiome, which is increasingly understood to influence brain function through the gut-brain axis. Practical note: switching white rice for brown rice, white bread for whole grain bread, and regular pasta for whole grain pasta covers 3 servings without adding any new foods to your diet, just replacing existing ones. Food 7. Fish. Target: at least 1 serving per week. Fatty fish specifically. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, trout, tuna. The oily, fatty varieties, not fish sticks or fried fish sandwiches, which belong in the limit category. This is the most direct source of DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, one of the omega-3 fatty acids that forms a significant component of brain cell membranes. Approximately 25% of the fat in your brain is DHA. The brain does not manufacture it efficiently on its own. It depends heavily on dietary sources, primarily fatty fish. Low DHA levels have been associated with reduced brain volume, accelerated cognitive decline, and higher risk of Alzheimer's disease in multiple studies. Adequate DHA levels are associated with the opposite: thicker cortical tissue in imaging studies, better performance on cognitive assessments, and lower rates of neurodegeneration. The MIND diet requires only 1 serving per week, significantly less than the Mediterranean diet, making this achievable for people who do not eat fish frequently. Practical note: canned sardines and canned salmon are among the most DHA-rich and most affordable options. 1 can of sardines twice a week covers the weekly requirement and costs less than most supplements claiming to achieve the same result. Food 8. Beans and legumes. Target: at least 4 meals per week that include beans. Lentils, black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, edamame, split peas. Any member of the legume family. Beans are one of the most nutritionally complete foods available for brain protection at low cost. They provide plant-based protein without the saturated fat of red meat. They are high in fiber, which maintains blood sugar stability and feeds the gut bacteria that support brain function. They are rich in B vitamins, particularly folate, and they contain significant amounts of magnesium, which plays a role in the electrical signaling between neurons. The blood sugar stability benefit deserves specific emphasis. A diet that keeps blood glucose consistently stable throughout the day maintains the brain's fuel supply without the inflammatory spikes associated with refined carbohydrate consumption. Beans, combined with whole grains, provide a dietary framework for that stability. Practical note: canned beans rinsed thoroughly are nutritionally comparable to dried beans cooked from scratch. Adding a half cup of lentils to soups, a quarter cup of chickpeas to a salad, or a scoop of black beans to a grain bowl covers the serving requirement with minimal preparation. Food 9. Poultry. Target: at least 2 servings per week: chicken, turkey, duck. The lean proteins in this category provide the amino acid profile the brain needs to produce neurotransmitters, including the serotonin, dopamine, and acetylcholine that underlie mood, motivation, and memory, without the saturated fat load that accompanies red meat. Chicken breast is the leanest option. Turkey offers comparable nutritional value. The preparation matters: baked, grilled, or roasted, not fried. Fried chicken belongs in the limit category, regardless of the protein source. The primary value here is substitution. 2 or more meals per week featuring poultry instead of red meat reduces total saturated fat intake meaningfully across the year. That reduction in saturated fat reduces the inflammatory load on the cardiovascular system, which reduces vascular damage to the brain. Practical note: this is one of the most straightforward substitutions in the diet. Replace 2 red meat meals per week with chicken or turkey, and the requirement is met. Food 10. Wine. The original MINDdiet study included moderate wine consumption, approximately 1 glass per day, as a component, citing potential benefits from resveratrol and polyphenol content in red wine. I want to be transparent with you about the current scientific context around this entry. The evidence base for alcohol as a brain health protective factor has shifted significantly in recent years. The 2024 Lancet Commission, in its updated report on dementia risk factors, does not include moderate alcohol as a protective factor. Multiple analyses that controlled more rigorously for confounding variables found that the apparent protective effect of moderate drinking may reflect lifestyle differences between drinkers and non-drinkers, rather than a direct benefit from the alcohol itself. The honest current position is this: if you already drink wine moderately, the other elements of the MINDdiet appear compatible with that. If you do not drink, there is no compelling research reason to start based on brain health evidence. The non-drinking participants in the MINDdiet study, who followed the other 9 food categories closely, still showed significant cognitive protection. I include this entry because it was part of the original study protocol, and this channel's commitment to accuracy means representing the research as it was, while being honest about where the evidence has evolved. The MINDdiet is not only about what to add, it specifies 5 categories of food to reduce, because the research showed that eating the right things while continuing to eat significant amounts of the wrong things produced much weaker results. 1. Red meat. Fewer than 4 servings per week. Saturated fat from red meat drives vascular inflammation and elevates LDL cholesterol, both of which damage the blood vessels supplying the brain. 4 servings per week is not elimination. It is reduction from the average American consumption of 2 to 3 servings per day. 2. Butter and margarine. Less than 1 tablespoon per day. The saturated fat in butter and the trans fats historically in margarine both elevate LDL cholesterol and promote vascular inflammation. Replacing butter with extra virgin olive oil as a primary fat directly addresses this and simultaneously adds the protective compounds from olive oil. This swap is the single most impactful change available for someone starting the MINDdiet. 3. Cheese. Fewer than 1 serving per week. High in saturated fat. The evidence on cheese is less clear-cut than on butter and processed meat. Some studies show neutral or mild effects. The MINDdiet limits it conservatively as part of the overall saturated fat reduction framework. 4. Pastries and sweets. Fewer than 5 servings per week. Refined sugar drives insulin resistance, which impairs the brain's glucose metabolism. It also triggers inflammatory responses that cross the blood-brain barrier. Pastries, cakes, cookies, candy, sweetened beverages, all of these belong in this category. The target is not 0, but significantly less than the average Western diet includes. 5. Fried food. Fewer than 1 serving per week. Fried food concentrates the worst dietary elements simultaneously: saturated fat, trans fats from frying oils, and advanced glycation end products formed when proteins and sugars are cooked at high heat. These AGEs are independently associated with accelerated aging and neuroinflammation. 1 serving per week is the limit, and less is better. Let me make this practical, because the research is only useful if it translates into what is actually on your plate. Every day, a serving of leafy greens, a salad, a handful of spinach with eggs, kale alongside a meal, olive oil instead of butter for cooking and dressing, a handful of nuts as a snack, a serving of whole grains at least twice a week, berries with breakfast, as a snack or with yogurt, poultry for dinner or lunch. At least 4 times a week, a meal that includes beans or legumes, lentil soup, chickpea salad, black beans with rice, edamame as a snack. At least once a week, fatty fish. 1 meal, salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring. Limit each week, red meat to no more than 4 occasions, fried food to 1 occasion or none, sweets to fewer than 5 occasions, butter to less than a tablespoon daily, replaced with olive oil, cheese to 1 serving. That is the whole framework. No calorie counting, no macro tracking, no complicated protocols. 10 categories to prioritize, 5 to limit. For the caregivers watching this for someone they love. The MINDdiet does not require the person with cognitive concerns to change everything at once. Start with the one change that is easiest to make, typically adding leafy greens to an existing meal. Then add 1 more change the following week. Small, sequential changes are more sustainable than a complete overhaul. Before I tell you where to start, let me give you something the research actually uses, a way to measure where you are right now. The MINDdiet has a validated scoring system that the original Morris study used to classify participants into adherence levels. You can calculate your own score in the next 60 seconds. For each of the 10 brain food categories, leafy greens, other vegetables, berries, nuts, olive oil, whole grains, fish, beans, poultry, and wine, give yourself 1 point if you are currently meeting that food category's weekly target consistently. For each of the 5 food categories to limit, red meat, butter and margarine, cheese, pastries and sweets, and fried food, give yourself 1 point if you are successfully keeping each one at or below the recommended amount. The maximum score is 15. 15 out of 15 means you are following the MINDdiet closely across all 15 components. Here is what the research shows for each score range. A score of 9 or higher, what the researchers classified as high adherence, is associated with the 53% lower Alzheimer's risk and the 7.5 years younger cognitive performance finding. A score of 4 to 9, moderate adherence, is associated with the 35% lower risk. This is the finding most people overlook. Moderate adherence, following the pattern reasonably but not perfectly, still produced a 35% lower risk. The MINDdiet does not require perfection to produce meaningful results. A score below 4 means most of the 15 components are not currently being met. This is not a judgment, it is a starting point. Take a moment to estimate your number. Write it down if you can. Not as a grade, as a baseline you can measure against in 3 months, when the changes you make today are already showing up in how you feel and function. If you leave this video and change only one thing, start here. Add 1 serving of leafy greens every day. The Morris study found that leafy green vegetable consumption, analyzed separately, was associated with cognitive performance equivalent to being 11 years younger than those who ate the least amount. 11 years, from 1 category of food, consumed daily. A handful of baby spinach with your morning eggs. A side salad at lunch. A cup of kale in a smoothie you were already making. These are not dramatic changes. They are single ingredient additions to meals you are already eating. And if you change one thing in the limit column, switch your primary cooking fat from butter to extra virgin olive oil. That single swap simultaneously removes a significant saturated fat source and adds the protective oleocanthal and polyphenols from olive oil. 2 dietary changes from 1 decision. These 2 changes cost nothing extra. They require no new cooking skills. And the cumulative effect of making them consistently over years is what the research has now documented at the level of brain imaging, cognitive assessment, and dementia diagnosis rates. The 2024 Lancet Commission established that approximately 45% of dementia cases worldwide are potentially preventable by addressing 14 specific modifiable risk factors. Diet, specifically the pattern of eating that the MINDdiet represents, addresses several of those risk factors simultaneously: blood sugar management, vascular inflammation, oxidative stress, LDL cholesterol levels, the gut-brain axis. No single food prevents Alzheimer's disease. No dietary pattern guarantees cognitive protection. But a 53% lower risk of Alzheimer's in people who follow this pattern closely, from a peer-reviewed, extensively cited study in the Alzheimer's Association's own journal, represents one of the strongest actionable findings in brain health research today. The pharmaceutical industry has spent decades trying to develop a drug that produces results of that magnitude in dementia prevention. The foods on this list have been in grocery stores the entire time. One more practical section before the close, one that most MINDdiet explanations skip entirely, but which the research actually speaks to. What can you realistically expect to notice, and when, if you begin making these changes consistently? In the first 2 to 4 weeks. The most immediately noticeable changes are not cognitive, they are metabolic. Better blood sugar stability from reducing refined carbohydrates and increasing whole grains and legumes typically produces more consistent energy across the day, fewer afternoon energy drops, more stable mood, reduced cravings. The inflammatory environment in the brain begins responding to dietary change within weeks, though this is not something you will feel directly. Many people also notice digestive changes in the first few weeks as the gut microbiome begins adapting to significantly higher fiber intake from whole grains, legumes, and vegetables. This is a sign of a positive shift. Your gut bacteria are being fed differently, and the brain-gut connection means this matters for more than digestion. In the first 3 months, changes are building that are measurable in research settings, but not yet always subjectively obvious to the individual. Inflammatory markers in the blood are improving. LDL cholesterol patterns are shifting in response to the replacement of saturated fats with olive oil and unsaturated fats from fish and nuts. The vascular environment supplying your brain is improving. Some people report better clarity and sharper focus within the first 3 months. For others, the cognitive shifts come later and more gradually. Individual variation is significant and depends on baseline health, age, and the consistency of dietary change. The longer view. The cognitive benefits that appear most clearly in the Morris study, the 7.5 years of equivalent brain age difference, reflect years of consistent dietary patterns, not weeks. The MINDdiet is not a 30-day intervention. It is a long-term nutritional framework that produces long-term results. The earlier you establish these patterns, the more runway you give those results to develop. This is not a reason to wait until you feel ready. It is the opposite. The research is clear on when the best time to begin protecting your brain was. Decades ago, during the decades when amyloid was beginning to accumulate silently. The second best time is today. One question in the comments before you go. Which of the 10 MINDdiet foods do you already eat regularly? And which one would be the hardest to add to your weekly routine? Tell me both. I read every comment, and the answers shape what I cover next in terms of practical brain health guidance. If this video gave you a clearer framework for what to actually eat, share it. With a parent, a partner, a friend who has been told, eat healthy for your brain, without anyone explaining what that means.